I do a lot of work on Leonardo da Vinci's artwork. And I discovered that there was encryptions hidden. It's the subject of a television show I have on Gaia called Code X. And one of the things that I saw in that famous iconic illustration of Vitruvian Man, which is the man standing inside the circle and the circle and the square representing masculine and feminine. But most people don't know that there's a page number on the Vitruvian Man. And it's kind of conspicuous. First of all, Da Vinci writes in backwards mirrored text all the time. So he cut the Vitruvian Man and drew horizontal and vertical lines on his body. And no one really knows why, but if you read the text above it, which is in backwards mirrored text, also in backwards mirrored text, it says that the man is cut into 14 parts. And it mentions 1/14th in the text above the Vitruvian Man. Well, the 1/14th and the 14 cut reference is actually to Osiris. Osiris, who is an Egyptian god in the Egyptian pantheon, who was killed by his brother Set and cut into 14 parts. So immediately there's a symbolic reference to something that's related to Egypt. And he's got all these cuts. And what we discovered was that when you overlay the pyramid in the exact right positioning at the navel, which would be the ground level, then where he has each of these cuts on the Vitruvian Man's body tells us exactly where the chambers are inside the pyramid. Kind of fascinating, right? So it matches exactly the pyramid. And I went down a rabbit hole and found out that Da Vinci actually writes of this in his time in Egypt. So he spent 3 years in Egypt. He was missing from Italian history. He was very famous. Even in his youth, he was quite famous. There's no record of him in Italy from 1482 until 1486. The first piece of art that came out after that period of time in 1486 was the Vitruvian Man. Well, in the upper right-hand corner of the Vitruvian Man illustration is a page number, not written in backwards mirrored text. And we know when Da Vinci doesn't write in backwards mirrored text, usually it's encrypted. There was no book that this was a part of. This was a loose leaf illustration. So why would it have a page number on it? And the page number illustrated there is 126, 1.26. The doubling of the octave. Increasing the side of a cube by 1.26 doubles its octave. So what he was trying to tell us was about the coming new age where mankind doubles his octave into a higher dimension. And that 1.26 is not only true in mathematics, it's true in musical ratio. I was just recently asked by a very famous neuroscientist at UCI, University of California, Irvine. His name is Donald Hoffman. He's going to be on my podcast soon. I'm very excited about this. He's a super genius guy. He's probably the world's expert on mathematically mapping human consciousness. That's a concept. So he came in my office a few weeks ago. We spent the afternoon together and he said, Robert, can you tell me, think about how consciousness might actually have an equation for our emotions? So can you apply a mathematical equation to an emotion? So I started thinking about this. Okay, well, can music create or be a catalyst for emotional response? And what do you think? When you listen to music, can it bring on different emotions for you? Well, then there must be a mathematical relationship because mathematics is just a numerical form of music and geometry is the sound that we experience with our eyes. And therefore I could even argue that music is just the geometry that we experience with our ears. So then maybe what are the different waveforms of music that could cause us to feel different emotions like joy, like happiness or sadness, or there's a villain entering. And so you look at movie sets and we're here in LA area. So everyone here has studied some form or another of like how to set up studios and everything, something I've never studied. But one thing I do know is whenever a villain enters a movie, they always play a chord in the background. You know what the chord is? If you want to create fear in someone, you play a low frequency sound, right? And it's like agitating. It's like, ooh, what is this? It gives you this weird, eerie feeling, right? Well, the sound they play whenever villains enter or Darth Vader comes in, it's like dun, 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 dun. Well, that's diminished fifths. The diminished fifth is the relationship that always is associated with devilishness and like the villain is coming in. So all the minor chords, which are generally, you have to use a lot of black keys for the minor chords on the piano keyboard. Generally, the minor chords bring what we would call negative emotions along with them. We can entrain people sympathetically to those resonances, and we can agitate fear-based states just by playing minor chords all the time. And by the same token, you can play the white keys on the piano keyboard and the right combinations of those and the major chords. And generally those major chords are going to make you feel happy. They're going to raise your spirits and make you feel lighter. So I started looking at the mathematics of what creates these chord relationships. And the mathematics is mathematical intervals. So 3/2 is the perfect fifth. And 3/2 giving you the perfect fifth is actually this beautiful feeling of stability. It makes you feel safe. It's a major chord, right? That'd be like C to G on a piano keyboard. But then when you get to, the diminished fifth is this very negative feeling. It makes you scared. It makes you feel like something's ominous. It's like foreboding in a negative way. But if you play the major third, you feel love. The major third is 1.26. That is the cube root of 2. That is the major third. That's the doubling of the cube. So we're now doubling our octave through the major third, which is the interval of music that creates a feeling and sensation of joy and love. And there it was, as one of the page numbers on a page illustrated that was never part of a book. And how does that then translate for you, without even realizing it, to go all the way to Delphi to turn it on? The new chord of the world being the major third, which brings a feeling of love. So there is a mathematical representation. Every one of our emotions can be entrained musically through mathematical interval that all of us can understand. So whenever I said, oh, well, geez, how could I come up with a mathematical relationship for emotions? That's very difficult to conceptualize. But as soon as you realize that math and music are the same thing, for me to say to you, can music bring on emotion? Oh, absolutely. Well, then that means that there's geometric relationships of that cube root of 2. That means that there's certain light forms and colors that in combination will bring greater joy, and certain light forms and colors, because light and sound are one, that will bring you this diminished fifth feeling or the minor second, or any of the minor chords that are going to bring you into a more negative state. So now you realize, wait, maybe even just with music and light and geometry around me, I can actually raise my vibration. And the answer is yes.
Here is where a deeper mystery begins to emerge, and to explore it, we will need to go back to Pythagoras' other passion, geometry. It is not an exaggeration to say that to Pythagoras and his disciples, geometry and math held a key to the nature of all life everywhere, and maybe it does. Let's look at the first 4 geometric shapes: the circle, triangle, square, and pentagon. In each of them are angles of degrees that, when added together, always total a specific number relative to that particular shape. For instance, if we take a triangle, the sum total of all 3 interior angles is always 180. For both the square and circle, it is 360. For a pentagon, it is 540. Now at this moment, let's step back and look at these numbers in a different way, as there seems to be something about them that reaches beyond a simple sum of angles. Did you notice that they happen to be in the same numerical neighborhood as tone 432? What's more, they all add up to 9, just like 432. As an experiment, let's take a look at the numbers found in basic geometric shapes, then apply those numbers as vibration cycles to hear the tones they produce. First, let's listen to what the 180 total degrees contained in a triangle sound like. And here's a squares and circles 360 in cycles per second. A perfect octave up from the triangle. What about the pentagon at 540? That sounds like a harmonic fifth of the other 2. That's interesting. What are these tones? They are F sharp and its perfect harmonic fifth of C sharp. Let's keep going. What does a hexagon 720 sound like? Another F sharp. Here's a 7-sided septagon, which totals 900. This is an A sharp, which happens to be the note required to complete an F sharp major chord in perfect 3-part harmony. And finally the octagon, where we get 1080, another C sharp. Suddenly, geometry is expressed by tones, and these tones just happen to create the most beautiful form of music, a perfect 3-part major chord in the key of F sharp. Is this something we've been missing for years? Is it important? To the famous philosopher and mathematician Plato, the answer would have been a resounding yes, for it is Plato who advanced the study of 2-dimensional geometry into 3-dimensional geometry, and who began to recognize that nature, whether expressed as a tone, the petal design of a flower, or the spiraling design of a seashell, seemed to follow a 3D mathematical pattern. In fact, it became an obsession of Plato to try and find the simplest 3-dimensional geometric shapes, and his quest ultimately revealed what we now call the platonic solids. In essence, these forms represent the most elemental construction blocks found both in human-made and natural forms. So let's see if and how they fit into our geometry tone grid. First, there is the tetrahedron, or a 3-sided pyramid comprised of 4 interlocking triangles. As we did before, let's add up all the angles found in those 4 triangles. The answer, 720, which we have already seen is the tone F sharp. Next, we have the cube, whose 6 360-degree squares totals 2160. What does it sound like? (2160) is a high C sharp, and as you will see later, a very interesting number for other reasons as well. Next up is the octahedron. Constructed of 8 triangles, this shape totals 1440, which is another perfect F sharp higher up the scale. The icosahedron is made up of 20 triangles, so the total number of degrees is 3600. As a tone, 3600 vibration cycles create the A sharp needed to complete yet another F sharp major chord that sounds like this. At this point, we have seen how 2- and 3-dimensional geometry can be expressed by the notes found in an F sharp major chord. Could this also be true with what is known as sacred geometry? To find out, we will first need to build a design called the germ of life, which, when repeated, goes on to reveal the seed of life, then flower of life pattern found at sacred sites all over the world. First, we start with a circle at 360 degrees, which is the familiar F sharp. We then add our second circle, bringing the total to 720, another F sharp. 3 circles totals 1080, which provides the harmonic fifth of C sharp. 4 circles is 1440, another F sharp. 5 circles totals 1800, or the A sharp needed to once again provide the harmonic third of an F sharp major chord. And finally the 6th circle, which brings the total to 2160, another C sharp. Amazing! It's as if we can now both see and hear the flower of life pattern that has intrigued humankind for thousands of years. So now we have 2-dimensional geometry, 3-dimensional geometry, and even sacred geometry being represented by different variations of an F sharp major chord. How is this not common knowledge? How have we missed this connection?